The specific story I'm going to tell you is when I ended up being in the sacred position of holding space for a friend who crossed. My friend's name was Billy, and we had been friends for 15 years. And he was kind of a sacred older brother to me. I went through some really tough times in my 20s and a lot of my 30s as well. And it was a real struggle to be who I was in a world that wasn't really knowing where to put me and me not knowing where to put me. And he took very good care of me. He made sure that I was always well and always treated me with decency, respect, and love. And he was a fashion designer and loved to dress me like I was his doll. So he helped me with self-love. He helped me with valuing myself as somebody's muse. He knew that I had gone through this whole process. He knew that I had fought hard. And he knew that I was getting better. And it was at the exact same time that the doctor told him that he should get his affairs in order. And his doctor said, do you need me to call your friends or your family? Do you need me to tell you what to say in consultation with them? And he played the message for me. He came to my house and he played his phone so that I could hear what his doctor said on the phone. And then he said, I know you're a really powerful healer and I have so much faith in you and I want you to help me. And I said, look, Billy, I'm on board for as much as you need, for as long as you need. I'm at your side. And at the time, he was still super vibrant. And all his experience of being sick was that he had a really sore throat and it was very hard to swallow because he had a throat cancer. Over the course of trying to work with him, he was very, I'm going to use the word squirrely, because I wanted him to come to my house to get work done 3 times a week. I was very serious about him getting in and getting the work done. But he was elusive. Now, when you're working with people, you have to remember their sacred process, no matter how frustrating it is for you to experience, is their sacred process. So knowing he had healer on tap with me, that I wasn't going to ask him for money for anything. I was going to sit with him and heal him and heal him and heal him and heal him until I was cross-eyed. Okay? He didn't want to take advantage of that. And there was a part of me that was frustrated with him, and I would call him and be like, you need to get your ass out here. I didn't have a car, so I was depending on him to get to me. And he came to me, he got diagnosed in late September, and he came to me once in October and once in November. So roll forward into December, I didn't hear from him at all. And I'd sent him text messages, no response. Roll forward to January, now I'm starting to badger him. What's going on? Where are you? He called me. He was really, 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 really stoned, and he was watching The Mummy. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because he loved everything Egyptian. It was really inspiring to him. He loved everything Egyptian. And when he was making fashions all the time, he would do that. And his thing with his family is he'd say Egyptian, Egyptian. And it was very sweet. I mean, he was into all of that. He's like, oh, this movie is so cool, and it's The Mummy, and it's so spiritual, and he's stoned, so, he wasn't really completing any sentences, and I really didn't get much insight on it. But it was a really lovely call, and I was giving him some hell about coming to see me. And he, again, did not make an appointment. He told me that he was going to be staying with his aunt, and he went to his aunt's house. Now, we'd already formed a pact because I'd already given him the 2 healings, and we were already bonded on this energy. He was going to be able to reach out to me, even if he wasn't going to be able to use his phone. At the time, I was really into doing Turkish coffee readings. Basically, you read the grounds, and I'm really good at it, and it's a lot of fun because I get to see all kinds of really cool images. And I wanted to give myself a coffee ground reading. And I'm looking at the cup, and I clearly see Billy. Billy is sideways, he's profile, and there's a big hole in his neck. And in front of him is a gravestone. And above him is a butterfly. And I was like, oh, this is serious. I call up his aunt's phone number. Isn't it great when your friends give you family context? Keep that in mind, people. Because there could be times when they need to know you're okay, that you're not able to tell them, and family would know better. So that's just FYI. Always try and do that. And he'd done that for me. 15 years of friendship, we were very close. And I'm not calling you to scare you, and I know that things are tough and you've been caretaking Billy. But I just did this coffee ground reading for myself, and it was all about Billy, and I wanted to share with you what the image was. And it's very serious. And she said, I'm going to have him call you back. And he calls me back in 20 minutes. Now, this is in February. His voice is super raspy, and I can tell he's struggling to speak. And he says, I'm really sorry I haven't spoken to you, But when my aunt told me what was in the coffee grounds, I wanted you to know what's been happening with me. And he said, I have a very large hole in my neck. And of course, I didn't have the hole in my neck when you last saw me. And it was very worrisome. And I want you to come do work on me. And I said, Billy, you already know I will do everything in my power to do that. I still had no car. So I called one of Billy's other friends, very deeply spiritual, very grounded, very loving, a most wonderful man by the name of Rama. And Rama made the agreement that he and I would go see Billy. So we were tag teaming. They inspired each other. They were definitely soul brothers. It was a very beautiful thing. Rama and I make it to Billy's house, and this beautiful man who was always the, glowing health was not who was laying in bed. The man laying in bed, I didn't even recognize. He was so skeletal. He was so tiny. He lost all his body weight that his whole face was changed. Even his nose was a different shape because he didn't even have fat in his face. But he was willing to look at the person in front of them. And so this is the thing that I think families and friends could do better is, I understand you're pulling for the person who's not well, but it's important that you don't try and become fantasy oriented when you see them at that state, because they need you to be present to their struggle. They need you to be there for them with the possibility that they won't be there. Instead of saying, oh, you'll be here, we're going to do that later. You need to be present to their vulnerability. I sit down and he just sees my face and bursts into tears. And so we hold each other for a minute. Then he says to me, oh, can you heal me? And this is what I explained to him. This is how we dialogued. I want you to imagine that this line here is life. And this line here is death. And I said, I want you to imagine that what's in between these two lines is your health. I said, I want to show you where you are so you understand the conversation we're having. And he said, okay. I said, you are here. And he said, oh, uh-huh. And I said, so here's the deal. You can turn around and go all the way back here. That's your divine choices. I said, but I'm going to be honest. That is a very long journey. That could, for you to be in full and optimal health based on where you're at right now, is going to take every part of you, every ounce of your will, and the walk isn't easy, and you're going to feel sick pretty much the whole way back. And I was speaking from personal experience from being incredibly ill. It can take months or years, and you have to be realistic and loving and patient with yourself. You can't be angry if you're suffering. I said, and as you can see, since you're right here, it takes the tiniest nudge to topple you over on the other side. And he nodded, he understood, we held hands, we cried with each other again. And I said, okay, now I'm going to work on you. And I did a full sacred ceremony on him. And I explained this to him explicitly, was that whatever was his highest will would be done. If what was really true was he was tired, that he had chosen his end. We all have divine fate. Never take people's divine fate from them. We're born and we die. We don't get to choose whether our birth is fancy. We don't come out with flowers on our heads and smiling and singing a song and tap dancing. Going, I don't want to be out here. My head hurts because it got squished through a really tiny space. And hi, Mom, I love you. It's scary. Birth is scary. Death is scary. And it's full of surprises, right? I was doing the work to be, does he want to do this journey back? Does he have the strength? And if he does, I'm going to be there for him every step of the way. I'm going to be there for him even if he doesn't call me. We're going to be connected, and I'm going to help him regain whatever he can. I'm going to give him as many tools as possible. But if what he's really doing is he's tired and he feels like he's done as much as he can, and he's about to exit, that he can do so with a state of grace, with a state of strength, and not to feel afraid, because feeling fearful as you get closer and closer to the end is a horrible experience. It's isolating. You feel like nobody can understand how scared you are. And again, when I say that every death is a snowflake, I really do mean it. Every death is so unique that no matter what I'm saying about Billy's experience, Everybody's going to be different, and it's okay. There's no good or bad way ever when it comes to fate, when it comes to birth, which is everybody's destiny, and eventually the shedding of skin, which is everybody's destiny. And here's the thing, even if we could choose to be eternal, I'm sure at some point we'd be like, you know what, I want to trade this one in for something else, and we'd still decide to exit and do something new or transform in space. Maybe we'll get to that place where one day we can just choose another form without actually losing that consciousness in between steps. I'm not saying, because I believe every imaginable concept is out there possible. I was so grateful to be there. I felt incredibly honored to be there. The connection, the truth, the fact that your soul doesn't die, the fact that your body, let's be really honest here, doesn't die. And after doing the work on him, I left. I had a feeling it would be the last time I saw him. I was hoping I was wrong. It was the last time I saw him in his body. Let's see, that was February. He crossed on Easter. So from February to Easter, he and I were psychically bonded. We were connected at that distance. He was about a couple hundred miles away. And what was happening was I adopted his schedule. I didn't know I was adopting his schedule, by the way. I found out from his aunt, but I couldn't sleep anymore. I was up all night long until 6 a.m. And then at 6 exactly, I was finally tired, and I would sleep from 6 to noon, and then I would start again. And that was exactly his cycle from the day I left to the day he died, was that he was so afraid he would die in the middle of the night that he wouldn't go to sleep. He would force himself to stay awake. And so I was with him because we were connected in that. To walk that walk with him, even at a distance, meant that I needed to be really aware and awake and functioning when he was. And I needed to be asleep when he was. And I knew that I was feeling him whenever he was having any kind of trouble. Very shortly before he died, about, I would say 2 weeks before his death, he came to me. And I went to the bedroom and I laid down. And when I laid down and closed my eyes, Billy was with me. And he said he was tired and he wanted to go, and he wanted me to walk him to the door. When I'm working with people who are sick or working with people who need healing, I do sacred singing, which means I channel a song to them. I channel their own song to them. I let whatever's meant to come through. I usually start with a mantra, usually a Hindu mantra, but I have many different songs that I've inherited through the healers I've known who've loved me enough to share their wisdoms. And I'll start with that, and then I'll let that flow into their song. He and I moved closer and closer and closer to the threshold of him crossing. And he was just floating toward it, like gracefully, with so much trust. And right when he got to the edge of that threshold, if you can imagine it being the threshold of a door, right when he got to the actual threshold of the door, he grabbed my arm and he said, "I'm scared." And I said, I understand you're scared. It's going to be okay. And he's like, "I'm scared. Will you go just a little way with me? Just a tiny bit with me?" I said, "Billy, you can't do that. I can't go over the threshold with you." And he said, well, you've done it before, which I thought was really amazing and sweet and kind of freaking adorable. That he's all like, but you've died a little and you're still here with the living. Just go a little way with me. I just want to feel like you walked me in the door like kindergarten before you went and drove back to your job. And I went, Billy, no. I said, you don't understand. It's so compelling, that side. It's so powerful. It would be a fight. I might get sick. I might have to fight to get back into my body. I might not want to get back into my body. I said, you're going to have to trust me and do this on your own. You're going to have to have faith. And while we were having the conversation, we had slipped all the way back. Like, imagine the threshold was the space of 15 feet. Now we're 15 feet away. 50, hi, we're way back here. We're way away from the door. And I look and I go, oh, and Billy goes, oh, I'm sorry. Will you do it again? I said, yeah, Billy, I'll totally do it again. And so I take a breath and I start to sing his song for him. And again, he's moving toward that threshold and it's graceful. He's getting right to that threshold and he gets right there, grabs me by the arm. I'm scared. And I was like, oh no. I understand. You're going to have to just go over on your own. It's going to be fine. He goes, he goes, Guinevere, just go a little way with me. I have faith in you. You're really powerful. And I went, well, that's really sweet. And flattery will get you almost everywhere with me, but no. No. And of course, now we're back again. And I was just like, oh, geez, he's working me. Like, we're doing this work together, having to face these fears. So he looks at me and he's all sad and he goes, I'm sorry. I was just really scared. Will you try again? Of course I'll try again. And so I began to sing, and I began to sing with richness and depth and beauty and rattling into his soul and maybe into his dimensions and his lifetimes. And just like, I'm like, you can do this, Billy. You can do this. This is not death. This is not death. It's a graduation. And we get all the way to the threshold and he grabs my arm and he goes, I can't do it. And I went, oh, Billy, it's okay. And he goes, you're not mad at me? I said, why would I be mad at you? I'm not trying to force you to die. I'm not trying to make you go, you know. You came to me and said you were tired. And I'm here to help you with whatever it is that you desire. I'm here to serve your best interests. And he went, oh, thank goodness, because I thought you'd be so mad at me for coming here and asking and then not going. And I said, Billy, I could never be mad at you. This is us. This is how it goes. This is love. This is connection. And he said, oh, okay, well, I'm tired, but I'm not ready. And I said, look, it's fine. I'm with you. Remember, I'm with you. It's going to be fine. And he said, okay. And that was it. Vision over. He was gone. And of course I'm exhausted. So I go to bed, wake up around noon, and I call up his aunt. And of course I say these creepy words when she answers the phone. I go, I have a really uncomfortable question for you. Is Billy still with us? Because I didn't know whether or not he'd snuck out, you know, like I'd fallen asleep and he decided to go. And she's like, well, yes, he's still with us. Why in the world would you ask me that kind of question? And I said, well, I had this experience this morning and I just thought that maybe he'd gone and I just wanted to make sure he was still with us and wanted to make sure you were also okay. And she said to me, well, yeah, he's still with us, but he was having incredibly powerful hallucinations this morning. And I said, do you know what time? And she said, yeah, it was at 6 a.m. He was having a conversation. And I was like, he was having a conversation. And she goes, yeah. And I said, I think he was having a conversation with me. I said, I'll tell you what happened. I told her the entire story, didn't leave out any of the details. And she lost her mind on the phone with me. Oh my God, he wasn't hallucinating. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, I only heard his side of the conversation. And every word you said he said to you was every word I was hearing him say, but I didn't know who he was talking to. All I know is he was saying, please try again, go with me a little way, have faith in you. She'd only heard that side of things. She hadn't heard me singing the sacred songs and explaining to him that it was going to be okay. She hadn't heard that side until I called. He and I, in that sacred process, that sacred bond, we were in spirit realm, doing the work that was to lead to his crossing. I know that a lot of people who are losing people they love hear those people say really weird things. Well, what you have to understand is it may be disjointed. It may be because they're remembering something. But a lot of the times they're actually dialoguing with angels and guides. So you're witnessing them have conversations with people who've crossed, with angels, and in this case, with a psychic who had crossed herself for a little bit of time. This was life affirming for his aunt. It was also something that she was able to share with him because she was his bedside partner, to let him know that he'd actually met up with me and spent this whole experience having a ceremony and a ritual that morning. And that helped, I believe, him, because I didn't get to talk to him on the phone. He could no longer speak. Understand that there was less to be afraid of because he'd had the experience. He was the one speaking to me and having the experience, having the vision with me. So now we fast forward to, it was about a week before his death. And at that point, I was very aware of the fact that we were having constant psychic conversation between the two of us, that I was going to be with him to the very end, even though I wasn't actually sitting bedside, which is a beautiful thing because he was incredibly meaningful to me and still is, obviously. And I contacted him psychically because I knew he wasn't going to answer the phone. I knew that his aunt wasn't going to answer the phone. Everything at his house was chaos and everybody was in grieving and mourning and panic and denial. Denial is a big one. So when you're a death midwife or you get into death midwifery, family is really the hardest part. Working with the person who's crossing is not the hardest part. It's family. Family will be arguing. Family will be scared. Family will be evasive. And so it can be really, it's one of the reasons why most people actually recommend you getting a death midwife, because they're your strongest ally. At the very end, they'll hold space for you in a safe manner and even get your affairs in order if you need. Not just spiritually being there, but even helping you make plans. And a lot of people go into such deep denial with their families that they leave no plan. And when you leave no plan, it's incredibly messy. I mean, even years after his death, his aunt didn't know what to do with his car because no title on death and, just crazy. But it was a week before his death. And, while he was alive, we always spoke about spiritual events and spiritual energy and ceremony and all this other kind of stuff. I called him up on the psychic phone and I said, "Hey, Billy, here's an idea. Since I know you're tired and you're not ready to go, but I'm going to share an idea with you. The ideal day to cross at this time is Easter. And the reason why Easter is the ideal day is because you're going to ride a wave. And riding a wave out is bliss and thrilling." And I said, basically what's taking place is, as you already know, there's many Christians of many different levels of the faith all celebrating Christ's resurrection. And I said, that's a really powerful energy, a rebirth from the tomb. And, when you die, it's another form of a birth. Okay, so we'll have all these people are going to be focused on the energy of this. And then we go into the pagan communities that celebrate this holiday as well. Spring equinox. It's really beautiful. It's all this springtime energy. And so I said to him, that would be ideal if you decided you wanted to move through and do this work there. It'd be a big, huge thrill. It'll be like, Disneyland. It'll be like a big ride. And so I said, I recommend it because people will be praying, people will be in church, people will be doing their spiritual work, and you can benefit from it, and it will be a beautiful experience for your transition. Man, does he know how to take some advice. His stubbornness meant that he decided he would leave on Easter, but like Pacific Standard Time, 5 minutes before midnight. I mean, he listened to me for sure. Well, my experience, because I'd been his death midwife the whole time, was 5 minutes before midnight, I was suddenly tired. And I thought, oh my gosh, is it possible? And so I head to the bedroom, I get in bed, I pull my blankets up, I close my eyes, and my eyes are barely closed, and he's in the room with me. Now, the thing that makes it amazing about him being in the room with me is he's dressed from head to toe in a full-on pharaoh outfit. Now, let's go back to the fact that he was a fashion designer. Let's go back to the fact that his favorite thing was the Egyptian culture, the Egyptian. When he was a little kid, he called them Egyptians, right? And he's magically, because of course I'm in a vision with him, even though he's in the room with me, we're in this really vivid vision. I don't know how to describe it because being a psychic is a very weird thing. I can experience powerful visions, eyes open or eyes closed, and be like, this is real. Wow. Okay. He looks amazing. It looks like, spent $1 million on the outfit. And I'm dressed like a Egyptian high priestess. I'm like, he really dressed me up. And in front of him was an angel. And the angel was a beautiful angel, and he has his hands on the angel's hips, and he goes, "Conga!" And he's doing this conga line with me, and he's laughing, and he's filled with joy and bliss. He's just explosive with happiness. And I actually say out loud, I go, "Oh my gosh, Billy, did you die? Because you seem like really blissed out. And this whole time I've been working with you, you've been tired, a little bit scared, and a little bit sad. But right now you're not. Right now you're excited and blissed out and passionate, and there's an angel with you." And he didn't really answer. He just faded out. I left my phone on for the night because I didn't know if his aunt would call me and say he just passed, he just went right now. I didn't know. And she didn't. I ended up falling asleep, and I slept like the dead. Play on words. The next morning around 10 a.m., I called his aunt and I said, I'm just doing a check-in. And she explained to me that he had died 5 minutes before midnight, that they'd all been by his side. He shared that with me. Now, the fun thing is, you know what the gift he gave me was? He's a costume designer. This guy, gave me this crazy cleverness. I can make things I never used to be able to make before, really exquisite pieces. So thank you for that, Billy.